This video is about the circulatory system, also known as the cardiovascular system. There are two functions for this system. One is to pump blood throughout the body, and the other one is that blood is carrying all of your nutrients, oxygen, hormones, and waste throughout the body. The blood is made out of many different things. Most of your blood, about 55% of the blood, is called plasma, which is just the fluid portion of the blood. There are three different types of blood cells. The first one are your red blood cells, which we've already talked a little bit about, that has the protein hemoglobin on it that carries the oxygen around. They are round, disc-shaped cells. Your white blood cells are your immune system cells that protect your body from foreign substances. And the third type are platelets, which are just fragments of cells that help clot your blood after an injury. And those that have hemophilia A are the ones that do not have these platelets, that don't allow them to clot. Down here at the bottom, you can see if you spun your blood down using a centrifuge, you would see that 55% is the plasma, 1% would be your platelets, 3% are your white blood cells, and 41% are your red blood cells. And when you get sick and you go to the doctor and they take a blood sample, they will look at how many white blood cells are in your blood. If that number is higher than 3%, if you have more white blood cells than what you normally should, there's a good chance that you are trying to fight off an infection so that they know that you are sick in some way. The diagram up here on the right is showing the different types of white blood cells that can be made. There's a lot of different types that can ultimately lead to cancer as well. You see down here the cell that can become a lymphocyte or a leukocyte, which would be considered where leukemia, which is a cancer of the blood, where those types of cells would come from. Your blood vessels, you've heard these before in previous classes. Your arteries are very thick-walled vessels that are carrying blood away from the heart. Okay. Most of your arteries are oxygenated, meaning that they have oxygen in them. Your veins are carrying blood back to the heart that do not have oxygen in them. They are deoxygenated. The third type are your capillaries, which are your very small blood vessels that are microscopic. They're usually only one cell thick, and this is what allows your blood to reach every single cell. Remember that every cell has to have oxygen so that you can perform cellular respiration. So these blood vessels have to get all the way through to every single one of your trillions of cells. The heart has 4 different chambers to it. There are 2 atria, which is plural for atrium. These are your upper chambers that are thinner and less muscular. The 2 ventricles at the bottom are thicker and more muscular because that's where the pumping of the blood is taking from. There are 2 ways that your blood is being circulated. One is called pulmonary circulation, which is involved with your lungs. So your deoxygenated blood, after it's been through the body, is pumped to the lungs, where it picks up oxygen from your lungs and returns back to the heart. The other type of circulation is called systemic circulation. This is where all of the oxygenated blood that you just received from your lungs is going to go to every single one of your organs and eventually will come back after diffusion has taken place and the oxygen has been dropped off at every single cell. Here is a picture of the heart, and this is a picture of it facing you. So the left ventricle is actually on our right. Okay, so there's your left and right ventricle, and your atria are kind of hard to see. You can see the right atrium and left atrium is kind of in the back. You've got arteries coming off of the side, the pulmonary arteries and veins, which where your lungs would be. And here is the aorta, which is the main vessel coming from your heart. This shows the circulation very well. The pulmonary, from your heart, your pulmonary artery, which is going away from the heart, will go to the lungs, where it will pick up oxygen through diffusion and drop off the carbon dioxide. Usually arteries are red, but this artery is blue. The pulmonary arteries are going to be blue because they're arteries because they're going away from the heart, but they are blue because they do not have oxygen in them. So the pulmonary veins that are going towards the heart will be red. Okay, and then it's opposite for the aorta, and then the inferior vena cava is your vein coming back after it goes to all of your different organs and all of your different cells where that diffusion takes place in the capillaries. But just remember that your pulmonary arteries and veins look different in terms of color compared to the other arteries and veins. And here is a video clip that you are going to watch next.
The circulatory system is made up of two interweaving loops. The heart is at the center of the system. In the first loop, called pulmonary circulation, blood is pumped out of one side of the heart and travels to the lungs, where it picks up oxygen and then travels back to the heart. In the second loop, called systemic circulation, the oxygenated blood is pumped to the rest of the body. As blood is pumped through the body, it delivers oxygen and other nutrients and picks up waste products. The oxygen-depleted blood then makes its way back to the heart, where it starts the cycle all over again.
Okay, get ready. Space.
It's time to test Bobby's training, both on the water and in a dry run in the lab.
Move forward. Set. Go.
Hours in the lab have taught Bobby how to get the most out of his body. He has rehearsed the grueling race under intense scrutiny. As Bobby begins his test run, his muscles spring into action. They need more blood and the oxygen and fuel it carries to keep them going. His heart rate speeds up. With each beat of his heart, blood is pushed through the blood vessels of his circulatory system. At rest, it takes less than a minute for his heart to circulate blood through the arteries and veins that make up his blood vessels. During exercise, it takes even less time. Bobby's heart is revved to twice its normal rate because his blood must carry more oxygen to feed his straining muscles. As our muscles work, they produce a waste product called carbon dioxide. But our circulatory system has a way of getting rid of this waste. After it enters the bloodstream, carbon dioxide is carried by the blood to the lungs, where it is exhaled into the air. Having blood flowing efficiently throughout the body is essential for removing these waste products quickly. And the heat our muscles produce is another byproduct that the circulatory system helps to eliminate. The blood absorbs this heat and transports it toward the skin's surface, so that the outside air can cool it down. When a muscle is working, the skin above it warms up several degrees. Sweat, which is formed from water inside the body, is another means of keeping cool. As sweat evaporates from the skin, it lowers the skin's temperature. In the lab, Bobby is ready for his final sprint. Is his cardiovascular system up to the test? He increases his stroke rate. He fills his lungs to maximum capacity, and his heart starts pumping more quickly. But Bobby's heart is actually beating slower than yours or mine. His years of training have given him what is called athlete's heart. His heart's main pumping chamber, the left ventricle, has grown bigger and can pump more blood with each beat. That means Bobby's heart doesn't need to beat as often to get the same amount of blood circulating through his body as a less conditioned heart would. His well-conditioned circulatory system improves his ability to get oxygen to his muscles and remove carbon dioxide waste, which means his muscles can work more efficiently. And more efficient muscles translate into a better time in the race. Bobby is one step closer to his Olympic dream. It has taken dedication, intensive training, a good diet, and a healthy, efficient circulatory system to get him here. How does the circulatory system get rid of carbon dioxide waste in the blood?
Hopefully you can answer that question now. Two features of the circulatory system that we're going to talk about that is associated here that you hear a lot about is taking your pulse. A pulse is just a surge of blood that flows through an artery every single time your heart beats, every time it's being pumped. In the lab that we are going to do, you are going to have to take your pulse and you're going to see how well you can return back to your resting heart rate, your resting pulse, after doing various exercises. The other thing we're going to talk about is blood pressure, and blood pressure is just the force that your blood is exerting on your blood vessels. There's different places where you can take your pulse. The most common one is the radial pulse, which is just below your thumb. So you can practice trying to take your pulse. You usually want to get beats per minute, which means usually you take your pulse for 15 seconds and then you multiply that by 4. If you're having trouble finding your pulse in the radial, there are other places. Some people have tried their ankle, their knee. You can even get a pulse in your groin as well, but also at the jugular vein behind your underneath your ears is another common place that people use. Blood pressure, like we said, is just a measure of force that's being applied to your artery walls. When you have your blood pressure taken, you are given 2 numbers. Okay, the average blood pressure number is 120 over 80. 120 is your systole number and 80 is your diastole number. What happens is they squeeze your arm to the point where no blood is flowing through that artery. So your artery is closed and they don't hear any noise. Okay? When your artery starts filling back up and they start hearing sounds and the artery is opening and closing, that's your systole number. When they stop hearing the sounds, meaning that the artery is officially open, that is your diastole number. So again, 120 over 80 is one that you're shooting for. If it's too much higher than that, either diet and exercise can lower that. And sometimes people have to take blood pressure medicine to lower their blood pressure.